Hi there and welcome. I'm here with Roosevelt Mosley from Pinnacle Actuarial Resources. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Glad to have you back. Roosevelt, can I just start actually and ask you to introduce yourself and your role within Pinnacle and how you fit into the connected car and insurance telematics industry?
Sure. My name is, as Andy said, Roosevelt Mosley. I'm a principal with Pinnacle Actuarial Resources. And Pinnacle provides full-service actuarial consulting to a number of clients, both insurance company and business clients with risk issues. Our presence in the telematics and the connected car space revolves around a lot of the analytics related to vehicle data, usage-based insurance data, and how all of that data impacts the pricing for insurers for traditional auto insurance. Part of the involvement as well is around the emergence of the autonomous vehicles and safer cars and self-driving vehicles, and how that's ultimately going to impact the insurance market and the insurance space.
Okay, fantastic. Now you're going to be giving a keynote presentation tomorrow morning, which I'm looking forward to. Can I just ask about the topic and actually why the topic is so pertinent to talk about now?
Sure. Pinnacle is an actuarial firm at its heart, and so we provide a lot of data and analytics services to our clients, and one of those areas is in the space of usage-based insurance. And as we originally got into the usage-based space, what we began to realize is that insurance companies would approach UBI from the perspective of wanting to incorporate UBI and get discounts, but they really didn't have an overall strategy on what they wanted to accomplish with usage-based insurance. And so what we began to do is to start doing research on the UBI market, the potential of the UBI market, and how consumers were reacting to UBI offerings from insurance companies. That research began over 3 years ago, and this will be the third time that we've given an update on that research at the conference. And the research is essentially around how customers are reacting to either offers of usage-based insurance or being a part of the UBI program and their experience with it.
Fantastic. Just to elaborate a little bit on that, I mean, we have a track now within the conference which is focused around the consumer. Do you think we've turned a corner, that we're actually looking more at, we're considering more about what the consumer is thinking about UBI than before?
I think we're getting there. I wouldn't say we've quite turned the corner yet. I believe there's still a lot of inward focus in the industry in terms of what we believe consumers want and not necessarily what they want. An example would be a lot of the focus on value-added services. While it sounds good from an offering perspective, there just hasn't been the demand from insurance customers for these value-added services from insurance companies. The largest provider of UBI in the U.S. is Progressive, and they don't offer value-added services.
Sure.
And so that says something about what the consumer really wants and what they're really interested in.
Sure. We've got a busy 2 days here at the conference. We've got a lot of great speakers, including yourself. I was just going to ask, are there any topics that stand out as particularly interesting to you? Are there any speakers that are standing out as particularly interesting to yourself?
Sure. I guess the topics that are standing out really are centered around a couple of different things. One is what insurers are doing in the usage-based insurance space, and so speakers from companies like Progressive and others that are detailing not just what they're doing, but some of the things that they are thinking about are of obvious interest because it signals the direction in the marketplace from the insurer perspective. It's also interesting to see how the number of UBI service providers and technology providers has evolved, and some of the new things that are being developed in the UBI offerings for consumers and for insurance companies that they could take advantage of. So those are a couple of interesting things, and it's always interesting year over year to see how that evolves.
Sure. There are a few big topics that seem to be emerging that is almost crossing over into the insurance industry from the connected car space. The autonomous car, the autonomous technology, there's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of investments that we're actually seeing from automakers, from tier one service providers. How do you think that this is going to affect the insurance telematics industry, and when do you think we're actually going to see a meaningful impact from that technology?
honestly, I believe the impact on the insurance industry and UBI specifically will be pretty significant. If we get to a place where, fast forwarding however many years that is, where autonomous vehicles are the dominant vehicle on the road, then I think the need for a UBI solution becomes almost non-existent.
Sure.
Because you've got autonomous vehicles driving around the roads. Where I think the most interesting risk issues will evolve is in the transition. So as the mixture of autonomous vehicles with real drivers on the road and how that interaction comes into play, I think that will create some really, really interesting risk issues, but then also liability issues. Who's responsible? Is it the driver? Is it the technology? Is it the computer? That one will be real interesting to sort out. But again, ultimately, I think that creates implications for insurance companies in that the traditional insurance mechanism will have to evolve. Otherwise, there won't be enough insurance to go around, and eventually insurance companies will become, as they're known today, will become non-existent.
Sure. The Internet of Things, IoT, it's an interesting and exciting topic or concept, I suppose, for anyone working within the connected vehicle. How do you suppose companies in this industry should be adapting or changing their strategies to incorporate IoT?
The Internet of Things, I think that's going to be one of those evolving areas that it takes companies a while to get their arms around. The insurance company is insurance industry is at a place right now where there's almost an arms race for more data. We want more information, we want more data to help us understand our customers better, understand our risks better, and thus be able to provide the proper solutions. And part of the challenge will be being able to, one, acquire all of that data, consume it, and then derive actionable insights off of it in a quick fashion. And so I think but the first thing that needs to happen is companies probably need to focus on it a little more. It's really hasn't been a huge area of focus right now. You know, the technology around the car has been of interest, but a lot of the other things that insurance companies can get data from, I think it kind of makes their head hurt when they think about all the possibilities. So I think the first area is focusing on it, but then sifting through all of the available options and determining what's actually important and what's not. It's got to be step number one.
Sure. And then the connected car has also led the way to a host of new mobility models. Car sharing, e-hailing, carpooling, and these services seem to be getting more and more popular.
Right.
How do you think insurance carriers and service providers in this space need to be thinking about these new modes of mobility?
I think insurance carriers will have to adjust the way that they think about risk and cover risk to be able to incorporate these new types of mobility into their service offerings. One of the things that we're seeing is that with these new methods of mobility, it's creating less of a demand for traditional insurance. If I have the ability to use ride-sharing options or mobility options, and I don't need to own a car, or I don't need to drive the car that I own as much. So instead of two cars, maybe I only need one. And I think that trend is probably not going to turn around. It's going to continue. And if insurers don't then begin to determine how do I address these new risks, how do I provide Uber coverage or Lyft coverage or coverage for these ride sharing or car sharing arrangements, then they'll see their particular market shares begin to dry up. Sure. And so I think instead of fighting against them, and insurers will need to figure out how to best cover them so that they can still be that one-stop shop for customers to be able to cover whatever their risk is, either a traditional car or their share of a mobile option, a car sharing, or even potentially when they're taking part in a ride-sharing opportunity, any risk that's involved in it.
Sure. In the past, we've seen how insurance carriers have actually been trying to create a value proposition to approach automakers to retrieve that onboard vehicle data. It seems as if we may have turned a corner there with automakers and insurers now working a little bit more closely.
Yes.
GM and Progressive would be a good example of that. Ford are here at the conference speaking,
right.
Also as well as GM. How do you see the relationship between automakers and the insurance telematics space sort of changing and moving forward?
I think it's just as you described. I think you'll see that relationship continue to improve. Car makers realize that they have a lot of information and a lot of data related to the vehicles that they're putting out and the connectivity associated with those vehicles. And like any smart businessman, they're looking to be able to monetize whatever information that they can. And so they realize they have a very valuable resource. But part of the challenge that they've encountered is being able to monetize that resource without upsetting their client base.
Sure.
So while GM and Ford have started to become more open to the idea, there are car makers like Mercedes-Benz that still are pretty staunch against doing it because their whole value proposition is the driving experience. And if they now turn over this driving data to insurance companies, that potentially could impact their customers' driving experience.
Sure.
And so while I don't think it'll be across the board solution, I think you'll still see gradual movement in the direction of more cooperation.
Okay, fantastic. Currently then, we've got a lot of insurance carriers at the conference. Some insurance carriers which have live UBI programs and some of the smaller ones that haven't done so yet.
Right.
What do you think insurance carriers should be putting forward as the main value proposition to the consumer for a UBI program?
The insurance companies should put forth the value proposition that resonates with the customers. And while I think that value proposition has to be comprehensive necessarily, I ultimately think that when it comes down to it, really what the insurance customer is interested in is savings. Now, there are offerings out there which have many value-added services, and I think those help solidify close the deal, and so I don't think it's the primary reason a customer would come to an insurance company for a UBI solution, but the additional options don't hurt. But ultimately, for example, if I want a vehicle location service or if I want geofencing, I have many options in the marketplace to be able to go do that without having to go to my insurance company.
Sure.
But what I can't get from anyone else is my insurance savings. And that's really, that's even as great as all the other options are, it all comes down to how much money are you saving. And I think that's, until we turn the corner to maybe get insurers or customers interested in something else that can't be provided anywhere else, it's probably still going to come back down to savings for a while at least.
Sure. And then just finally, on a personal level and as representative of Pinnacle, what are you looking to take away from the conference? What are the things that brings you back to Insurance Telematics USA?
Well, I think one of the primary things that brings us back is of all of the meetings that we go to, and some of them are focused on telematics and some of them are focused on a number of other things, including telematics. This particular conference is the most comprehensive one that we've been to in terms of both the material that's covered by a lot of the speakers, but then also the attendees here. The entire UBI ecosystem is represented here, from service providers, obviously insurance company representatives that are either working in the space or interested in the space. And it really is the best place we found to be able to make connections in the UBI space and to be able to generate those opportunities. The other thing is, as we've seen the conference progress from year to year, it's always interesting to understand the improvements in technology, how programs are changing over time, and to really be able to kind of understand the state of the art in terms of where UBI is, but also where companies think it might go over the next few years.
Okay, all right. Well, Roosevelt, it's a pleasure to have you back, and looking forward to catching your presentation tomorrow morning. But on behalf of TU-Automotive, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Cheers.